Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript party and my buddy Rhett here. She's being a good girl so far. We'll see how she does. It is 7:39 on Monday morning. Still gainfully employed. This is gonna be a rough week because like our sprint ends this week. We basically have 2 week sprints, so every other week, and I have a story that is just off the rails. I don't know. Like I worked on several stories, but one of my stories is just completely off the rails. And I just don't have the vaguest idea. It's just kind of like a source of absolute despair. So that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough to talk about. It's gonna put me in a very vulnerable situation. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how that works out. So I feel good about like what I'm supposed to start working on today on this project is unit tests. I basically have built out the vast majority of the architecture the way I want it and the way that I hope it's going to work in the long run. So I have like certain visions of things that I want to achieve and all that. And as I was kind of thinking through things, I started thinking about one thing in particular, and it reminded me of a story. I know that there's certain age groups out there that really enjoy hearing stories, and then I know there's certain age groups out there, particularly millennials, that just hate hearing stories from old people. But so yeah, if you fall into that latter group of millennials that don't want to hear stories, this is about to annoy the hell out of you. But sorry. So I once worked at on this project, and the way the project worked is I believe they got like $500,000 to build like some software, and it was more of a prototype than anything else at the beginning, and it was like set up to be a $1 billion project, and then at once they kind of did that $500,000, it got sort of the government, the military kind of looked over it and all that, and they were like, yeah, no, this does everything we need you to do. We'd like you to do the next step, and I believe the next step that got them up to $10 million. So they built like this application that achieved all the goals at $10 million. And so the next step was $100 million. And so the thing about this is one of the biggest problems with a lot of military contracts. Rhett, why? Why are you doing that? One of the big problems with these big projects is continuity. What happens is the like between these sort of milestones, they have like maybe a month, maybe 6 months, maybe a year between when they end one milestone and they start the next milestone. And it's tough to keep employees and staff up and all that for that situation, right? Because you aren't going to have money for a certain amount of time and ability to keep people employed. So, but you got to keep them from going and getting other jobs and stuff like that. So that was these people's issue too. So, anyways, there was the point where they're at the $10 million mark, and the software. One of the critical things that software was expected to do is it would be like nodes. So, like, say there's like 100 computers on the node that was keeping track of all this information. 5 nodes would need to be able to leave, go back in a remote place where they're no longer connected, and then come back, and then everything sync up again. That was like a critical part of the software, and so it worked. They had tested all out at the $10 million mark, and what happened was in the year between sort of finishing the $10 million node and the 200 million, before they could start the $200 million mode, it was sort of down. They had like one architect and a couple of other staffers that were sort of there just to kind of keep things going, but they had pretty much shut down. And the software that they were using, the account manager convinced or had been talking about certain features that they kind of wanted to, hoping to sell the Air Force to upgrade the software. And what happened was one of those features was like these very rich and beautiful, good looking, useful, valuable widgets. And so I think the widgets are, if you don't know what a widget is, I believe sort of a widget's a lot like a web component. but like full stack. So usually it has like an end-to-end full behavior. It's tied to something in a database all the way to the end, and it just does everything. But as part of that, there was like a setting that was in this software where you could turn off that capability of being able to break off and then come back. Well, these widgets didn't support that, like, because they needed full control, so they could not give you the data that you wanted. Because if some node was broken off, some nodes were broken off and they were doing something, this widget couldn't give you proper data. So you couldn't have both. And so my understanding, I was told this story, I wasn't there, but I was told that the account manager convinced some general to go down, and the general was like, oh, I know somebody that's using this software. They went down there, they talked to them, and they said, hey, we would like to just get a quick demo of this widget or these widgets. And they turned on the widgets, and everyone was just like, wow, that's amazing. And then the general and the account manager and them, they left, probably got massages or whatever it is that those rich, high up government sort of people do. And then no one ever unswitched it. It stayed switched. And so now they went to the 10 million, they were at like the 50, $80 million mark, and everybody was using these widgets. And they had pretty much built everything, like 70, $80 million worth of work on these widgets, that it was impossible to do the fundamental requirement, which is for the nodes to break off and come back. Like, when I was there, the architect that had actually done the button was there, and he was telling me about this, and we were talking about it and all that. And basically what that was what you would call a poison pill. It killed the project. I believe the government shut that project down at the $100 million mark, and the consultant company left $900 million on the table because of this decision that happened. All of that, I was thinking about that all last night, over and over again. I'm like, why is my brain telling me about this? And I think it's because of, where is it? I thought it was in geometries, but let's see, mesh. This right here. Is this a poison pill? Is this something? Because one of the things I would really like in the future is to like have a list of geometries that you could choose from, and have one or more geometries that are being used, or possibly being used, 0 or more. So maybe 5 of them are using the same geometry. And if I dispose of a geometry, would that destroy them all? I don't know. I don't know if this thing. So it says remark. Call this method when the instance is no longer used in your app. So it seems like let's say I had like 5 different animations going at one time, and even within the same, or visualizations, even with the same visualization, let's say I had 2 or 3 that are using the same geometry, and then I go to update make it a different geometry. Oh yeah, I see here some more disposes, or a different material. Would that destroy them for all? I bet it would. And so I think I need to add, at least at this point, at least the ability to not destroy, to not dispose. So it seems like I should add like an optional, every time I have this dispose called anywhere, I should pass in the option of not disposing. At the very least, at least that will put me in a position to where if in the future, if I'm calling this like to update a mesh geometry, but I don't want to. Like, it's just for one item. I'm not update, and it's possible that I will still have references that I don't dispose. But I don't want to just always dispose. So I guess what I'm saying is I want this to be in my vocabulary and my understanding that you don't dispose. You don't have to dispose. So I think what I want to do is just do this. And I guess I don't want like fine grain control over dispose. I think just, am I a disposer? Do I have the authority to dispose of things, or do I not have the authority to dispose of things? I guess that's the question. So dispose equals true. And then basically I don't want to run any of this code unless dispose is equal to true. And this could end up being problematic in the future. I don't know. And dispose. And then let me just put a little something to remind myself. There may instances where disposing is not desired. This, I don't think I would ever be able. I think this is wisdom here. This is just wisdom that I got from having just done these sorts of things before, and knowing that this is could possibly a problem and could just save this entire project in the future. But I would never be able to get, I think it'd be very, very difficult to get that through in any kind of PR, especially in like a military sort of environment, because they kind of have this thing like that you should never ever have code that is unused. And right now this is code that is unused. All right, so I only want to dispose of it if it's true. At this point, by default, it will be true. So if you just call update mesh, it's going to dispose of the mesh, which will mean that it's no longer ever used. In the remark here, it says, call it. Again, it's not going to be, is not being used in the app. So we'll just kind of do that. I mean, I feel like, man, this is a dangerous, dangerous call. That like could, if we build our whole if we don't build like a little escape route now, we could find ourselves boxed into a really bad spot. So that is that. Now that's going to make that could make unit tests much more complex, because I don't even know how you would test to see if something has been disposed of. See if ChatGPT has any in ThreeJS there is a dispose function. Let's see what it has to say about that. Okay, is there a good way? write unit test to dispose function. What it's called was probably a mistake for me. Okay, so yeah, so it's like, hey, did that get called? Is there a way to check in unit test? Well, it probably knows to check if an object was disposed, like checking in memory. So it does have this UUID property that I've definitely seen. So this is not. A weakref. Well, that's a new thing for me to learn. A weakref. Oh, that's a bummer. So apparently you can create like a weakref and it won't actually prevent a disposal or something from being destroyed from memory, which that's interesting. This is a whole brand new concept for me. I've never, ever heard that one. Now let's look at our other response. Well, we learned something. That's what dispose. You ready? Like, okay, what if I... Okay, so to me, I guess an important, just a practical thing is like, what if I call dispose another mesh? Dispose for a geometry. And here's where you don't know, like, if it's going to tell you the truth or not, because you know ChatGPT has a bit of like creativity in there, and sometimes creativity is lying, and sometimes it's being creative. So if I call for a one mesh, but another mesh, still using it. Yeah, see, that's what I was afraid of. Yeah, that's exactly what I was afraid of. So we definitely need to be able to control whether dispose is being called. We do not actually have a actual practical reason to have that, but trying to shoehorn this in later may be extremely difficult in the future. So this is like I think it's important that we add sort of, we acknowledge this for the future, so the future version of us, you know, because it could literally be a year from now that we actually start trying to use the same thing. And then, see, it's like WebGL errors in the console, artifacts. Like, these things would be so hard to debug. So, like, we spend an extra one session sort of setting this up now. And then in the future, when we're calling this and we go, oh, okay, I'm just deleting, I'm doing a delete that's only for this one thing, but because what I can visualize, what I visualize is the idea of having like a way of seeing all of the available geometries and being able to assign that geometry. So that geometry still needs to exist, even it shouldn't be disposed of. If we built, when once we have that built out, we don't want to lose that geometry. We still want to have access to that geometry. But like, let's say we were in the object, like in the list of geometries, and we go, hey, delete that there. That can probably check to see, hey, is anybody using this? No. Yes. Is someone using this? Okay, you can't dispose of this. You can't delete this one unless you deal with that other one that's missing. And then if you and then let's say you go and you delete it, and then you come, and then this one, the like if we had a list of geometries and you delete it from there and they're not being used by anything, then you can dispose of it. But until then, you want to keep it. And those are the kinds of things that really are it's probably like, I guess what you would call, like, I think it's probably one of the most confusing and powerful tools in JavaScript, but it's also, the ability to sort of keep these references or destroy the references, that kind of thing. But I think it's also one of the most dangerous tools. And it's really, really like kind of the whole, believe it's Spider-Man who says, with great power comes great responsibility. I think this Dispose is like one of those things that's just extraordinarily powerful, but you should be careful with it. And in most examples that ThreeJS gives you, they just toss that in there without any kind of like, even it just looks so innocent. But I bet you this one is like, I bet you if there's I bet you this is probably the key. I don't know of many. I've never worked with very many ThreeJS applications, but I bet you they all have a problem here. I bet you this would be the very first thing that you'd want to look at if you got a job in a place where they use ThreeJS, is how are they disposing of things, or are they disposing of things? They may not dispose of anything, which is safer from a like likelihood of having some kind of very bizarre bug happening, but it's also very likely that if you use an application like that, after, like, if you just leave the application on, it just gets slower and slower and slower, and it's just because it's just building massive numbers of these sorts of things. I thought one thing that was just very fascinating though in this whole thing, and was sort of, I think we saw a technique that I think is really, probably really, really like sort of next level pro pro tip sort of thing. I don't know. And it was the thing about creating a snapshot in the tools and looking for that specific piece of memory. That's something I'd really enjoy doing. Yeah, open Chrome, go to the memory tab, take a heap snapshot, dispose of the object and remove, take another snapshot and compare. Now, I don't take another snapshot. Okay, everything is easy here until you get to this. Like, WTF, what does that even mean? Is there like a way these in the dev tools to look for a very specific piece of memory and see if it's gone or not? I don't know. Like, what does compare even mean? What did you mean by comparing snapshot? Wait, force Here's another concept I've never heard of. Force, you can manually trigger it. In DevTools, click the garbage. And then you can run. So I guess you can type this into the console, or you can click this thing. Look for objects that should, if they're still in memory. So look for objects that it. How do you look? Check if a mesh. Okay, so what did you mean? Take a snapshot, capture, look for objects that should have been removed. I did not know you could force garbage collection. I wonder what they mean by that, though. Look for. Oh, okay, there we go. In the second, search for the object name, box geometry. So I guess there's a way to search. I don't know exactly if that's true or not, but it looks like you can search for the box geometry. Can you search for variable names? No, you cannot search for variable name. So like it. So this wouldn't, like, let's say you had like 100 box geometries they're using, and you wanted to dispose of one of them. There's no way to search to see if that one is missing. For custom properties. Oh, you can search for custom properties. All right, so there's something about. I do like this weak map. So there's like two huge concepts that I was unaware of. One is weak map. Apparently, you can do a weak reference and then check to see if that reference still exists after you destroy whatever it's referencing. And then the other is that you can force a garbage collection, which both of those are really good pieces of information to know. And I don't think that they've been around that long. I don't know. Maybe they have. I just don't know. I constantly learn new things. I love this concept. This concept. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, in a professional setting. So like today at work today, if this happens to come up, I'm not gonna say a word about any of this because I haven't tried any of it. I don't know if it's true or not, and I don't want to talk and say, oh yeah, no, this all exists. But you can't search for it. You can search for box geometry, but you can't search. Okay, so there is a debug. Oh, so I can give it a debug name. And then all that. So yeah, I would love to just sort of dig into this and try to understand it. Object tracker equals new weak map. My custom jar. This won't show any memory. This is definitely something I would love to just spend a month on, just sort of just absorbing this. I don't, just because I find these sorts of things to be absolutely fascinating, but I have other things I would much rather do with my time, which is unfortunately the reality is we do have a limited amount of time. But I am glad that I've stumbled into this whole concept of garbage collecting, delete, or specifically running the garbage collector, or looking for specific things in the heap and all that. One day I probably will come in here. This probably in a new job where you're trying to really understand what's going on. This sort of skill might be very, very valuable and useful. Definitely not the kind of skill that you'll be rewarded for, but it will make, you won't be compensated for this skill, but you will be compensated like financially, but you will be compensated with like sort of peace of mind and confidence in the world, and in understanding what's going on. So, that's kind of up to you to decide what is important to you, but that is that. What are we at? 8:10. I got 50 minutes before I have to start work. No, we didn't do any unit testing today. I do think that this is the reason unit tests exist, is to sort of force you to take a beat and sort of understand what's going on in the code. We did add this thing, which may never ever be of use, but I bet it will. I bet you that this concept here is probably the single biggest killer of ThreeJS applications. I would bet that this little simple little thing is probably a nightmare. And well, so let's see. It does work though, right? Yeah, it didn't break anything. Man, I've got to get that thing fixed. I don't think it will. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't even know what to think. It seems like when you resize, I don't know. I don't think so. I think when you resize, we don't want, once we have all these, I probably want the background to be black so that you don't get this. But I don't think by resizing the way this tool wants to be. Now, I do want to also have like where you could double click on this and you sort of have the bottom half is an editor and the top half is just a specific view of whatever you're looking at. And that probably this should be central. Everything should be centered and all that. That should be responsive. But I don't think the redrawing of the actual objects should be responsive. I think that should be static. But I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I didn't get anything done, really. I think I learned a lot. I definitely was introduced to some new concepts. Definitely manually running the garbage collector. No idea you could do that. And how to sort of check like weak references, weak map references and all that. Brand new concept to me. And I think incredibly, probably, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because, so I did sign up for a paralegal course yesterday. So I'm definitely moving in the direction of sort of of changing my career path. Yeah, I don't know. I do think I'll always be a coder because I think what's happening is that professions are starting to, yeah, this could be a whole video into itself, but I think that if you were to go back to 1997, 1998, organizations hired, the different parts of the organization would hire their own software teams or developers or people to build IT solutions for them, right? So the sales department would bring in some guy to build some software for them and a couple other people and all that. And then at some point, organizations decided they needed to rip that out from underneath their organizations and make it its own organization. So that usually falls under accounting. So basically, they turned the software development away from being like a custom part of a company and made it more of a utility within the organization for all parts of the company to use. And so, because they were looking for, I don't know, I don't really know exactly why, but I think it was because like not all their parts had money to build out software solutions, but all of their parts needed software solutions. So they wanted to sort of more generalize it. But the problem is that now like people and organizations can go to the IT department and say, hey, you know, I want a software solution that does X, Y, and Z. And then the software department says, yeah, no, we aren't going to give you X, Y, Z. We're going to give you A, B, C, and you're going to like it. And the software people are like, yeah, I don't want A, B, C. I want X, Y, Z. And there's nothing they can do about it. So then I think what's happening is now people within the actual departments are having to learn how to code, and they're having to learn how to code things within their actual tools. So you have, if you're a salesperson, you're a salesperson that knows how to code things in Salesforce.com. If you're an accounting person, you're an accounting person that knows how to code things in Excel. So you don't build custom solutions. You build solutions within those things. And that's because if you try to build something outside of those things, like if you try to build a tool or something, you'll get smacked down by the organization. No, only our IT builds stuff inside the tools. It's dangerous. You're putting us at risk, blah, blah, blah. You know, all the things that companies always do to protect their turf. So now I'm like, okay, I'm looking at all the different domains out there. I think the law domain is the most interesting domain to me. And I don't know if this level of understanding garbage collection in JavaScript would be of value within that domain. I suspect what will happen is I'll learn the tools within that domain, and I'll learn how to manipulate those tools with their whatever scripting language they have, and then I'll hopefully be able to advance within that domain because of my skills as a software developer. So, but I do find this fascinating, and then yeah, it'll be nice because I'll probably still keep coding stuff in ThreeJS just because it's like these sorts of things happen in ThreeJS that don't happen in a lot of other sort of languages. You don't need, or yeah, other domains. You don't really need to dispose of things because you're not building massive amounts of things that will consume a bunch of memory. Because the thing is, it's not probably the materials, probably not, it's the geometries. There are probably some enormous geometries that like you have like 10,000 little nodes that describe exactly how the geometry looks. And then if you're not going to use that geometry anymore, you know, you just want to get rid of it. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.